You're Bob Moog's daughter? When I'm first introduced to musicians and music aficionados, this is the question that comes up most often. Frequently, it comes with a bit of disbelief, and they look at me quizzically like they're not sure it's really true. I'm not sure what Bob Moog's daughter is supposed to look like, but apparently for them, this isn't it. In all seriousness, the reason for their momentary pause is more likely their deep reverence and awe in which they view Bob Moog. He is an icon and an inspirational figure for them and for people all over the world. My father invented the Moog synthesizer in 1964, a new electronic musical instrument that made it possible for musicians to sculpt sound as never before possible. It was capable of generating over 250,000 sounds, most of them brand new to the human ear. His invention revolutionized the face of music. And because of it, the palette of sounds that would reach all of our ears would forever be changed. Someone once summarized his impact this way: Bob Moog poked a hole in the sonic universe and made the future possible. He made the future possible for all of us. Whereas synthesized sounds were once relegated to avant-garde and academic studios, the Moog synthesizer made sonic exploration accessible. Now, 50 years later, synthesized sounds are everywhere, in our music, on TV, in film scores, and in the palm of your hand, in your cell phone. You know, it's okay that people are surprised at my relation to my father, because sometimes it takes me aback as well. I'm Bob Moog's daughter. Even as I say that now, I have a visceral reaction. The slightest stinging in the back of my eyes, the hairs go up on the back of my neck, and I have a slight chill down the back of my spine. It may seem like a simple relationship, but it's not that simple. For me, my dad and Bob Moog will forever be separate, with maybe just the slightest overlap in how I perceive them. I loved my dad. He was serious and geeky, but really cool. And in the times when he would loosen up and find something humorous, he had a huge laugh. So huge, in fact, that my siblings and I would choose to sit separately from my parents at the movie theater for fear of being embarrassed by being associated with a guy who was laughing so loud that everyone in the theater could hear him. My father also had a rigorous work ethic, both for himself and for his children. And even with the simplest of tasks, like sweeping the floor, he would look at me and say, "Michelle, get it right the first time." Words that still ring in my ears. He was often aloof, consumed with his work, but he always warmed when I would go out to his workshop to give him a kiss goodnight. But he was just my dad. But somewhere on the periphery of my childhood consciousness, I knew that there was this larger-than-life, iconic figure named Bob Moog, who invented the Moog synthesizer. I saw him on To Tell the Truth when I was 5 years old. I found him in my 9th grade physical science book, staring back at me. And the one time I went to a trade show with my father, Bob Moog followed us around everywhere and made my father really uncomfortable. But other than that, my father's career was pretty much kept at bay from my family, as if my father was shielding us from the fame, the expectations, and even the challenges that came with his celebrity. But he also held his career at arm's length from us because he wanted his children to have their own identity. He didn't want us to be in his shadow. He didn't want me to be known as his daughter, but for who I was. He was a firm believer in the integrity of individualism. 12 years ago, my father found out that he had a brain tumor, and he passed away less than 4 months later at the age of 71. During this profoundly sad time, there was also something really powerful and even magical happening. The walls that had been built around my family to keep my father's public persona at bay began to crumble. And Bob Moog came shining down on us with such a force that it caused a transformation in the way that I would see him. In the couple of months before his passing, we set up a page on the caringbridge.com for my father. And there, we could journal out and let people know how he was faring. People could also write in the guest book section and leave their well wishes for him. In the first 7 weeks, 60,000 people logged onto that page, and 20,000 people logged on the day he died. But more powerful than those numbers were the testimonials of Bob Moog's power of transformation, connection, and inspiration on people's lives. There were entries like, Bob Moog gave me my creative voice. Because of Bob, I'm a musician. Bob is the most important person in my life. Wow. There was a massive outpouring of that kind, and I read every single entry. I have to admit, this is how I first met my father's iconic alter ego, and it was one of the most overwhelming experiences of my life. Those powerful stories of inspiration introduced to my family, my father, a side of him that we never knew. And it also inspired us to take that inspiration and carry it forward to future generations by creating the Bob Moog Foundation. Now, the Moog legacy is no stranger to inspiration. My father was deeply inspired from the time he was a teenager by innovators who came before him. But in particular, one man who he referred to as his virtual mentor, Leon Theremin, who invented the Theremin in 1920, one of the earliest electronic musical devices. From the tender age of 15 years old, my father began building Theremins. He was completely captivated with their unusual expressivity because this is an instrument that you play without touching it, and by the elegance in their circuitry design. He studied Leon Theremin's work extensively, and he began building Theremins as a hobby and then as a profession. He was devoted. But around this same time, he became a very accomplished pianist, having taken piano lessons since he was 8 years old. And his mother swelled with pride when he was offered the opportunity to become a professional accompanist by the renowned Manhattan School of Music. But my father declined the offer and chose to stop piano instruction altogether at that point, and instead to dedicate himself to building Theremins in the basement workshop with his father. Now, you might imagine my grandmother was deeply disappointed, and she wasn't shy about letting him know that. But at this crucial moment in his formative years, my father chose to defy outside pressures and instead to stick to his passion and to his inspired connection with Leon Theremin. That was a decision that would inform the rest of his career. Not only did building Theremins then lead to his work in pioneering synthesis, but his devotion to the instrument would provide countless moments of inspiration throughout his entire 50-year career. Once, many decades later, my father had the rare opportunity to repair a theremin that Leon Theremin himself had built. He had built it for his protege, Clara Rockmore. After a few failed attempts, Clara was able to play the instrument with beauty and grace. My father later reflected, at that moment, I felt a strong spiritual connection to Leon Theremin, one that remains with me even today. It was the high point of my professional career. Imagine the man who's credited with being the father of modern-day synthesis, who sparked a revolution in the face of music, being so inspired by Leon Theremin that he cited that moment, not the moment of his various inventions, not the moment of his various awards, but that moment as the high point of his professional career. That is the power that lies within inspiration, a power that begs to be carried forward. Inspiration is one of our most potent cultural resources. By its very nature, inspiration begets inspiration, and the ripples are seemingly endless. My father was not only inspired by Leon Theremin. Once I asked him, what inspires you in your work? He answered in 2 words: the musicians. They were his guiding force, beginning with avant-garde jazz composer Herb Deutsch, who collaborated with my father to bring the very first Moog synthesizer into existence. Now, when Herb was able to coax musical expression out of the very first circuits that my father had developed, my father was, in his own words, blown away. And that inspired him to continue down this totally unknown sonic path. That inspiration that he would glean from musicians would inform his entire career. Just as my father was inspired by Leon Theremin and the innovators who came before him, and just as he was inspired by Herb Deutsch and musicians all over the world, just as he took that inspiration and shared it with people all over the world, we too were inspired to take that baton of inspiration and carry it forward to future generations so that they could carry it forward themselves. Through the foundation, we inspire young children through a program called Dr. Bob's Sound School, where we teach them about sound through science, music, and technology. We provide them with light bulb moments about the magic of the sonic world, how sound is made, how it travels, and how it's heard. By using sound as a vehicle for inquiry and discovery, we inspire the innovators of tomorrow. Now, the road to getting here hasn't been easy. Like many nonprofits, there have been a share of challenges, and people have encouraged me to give up. One day, about 7 years ago, on a fall day like today, an advisor to the foundation came into my office. The sun was streaming through the windows, but the look on his face was much darker. And he sat down beside me, and very earnestly he said, "Michelle, I don't think this is going to work. You're trying to hit a home run with a miniature bat." But I think he had it all wrong. I don't have a miniature bat. To the contrary, my bat is so big, I just need more people to help me swing it. My father's career wasn't exactly an easy one either, and I often think about everything he had to endure. He lost his company more than once. He was often at odds with the capitalists who took over his creative ventures. He lost the right to use his own name, and let's not even talk about the financial challenges. But he never relented. He never looked for the guarantee of being sure. He held fast to his sources of inspiration, and he inspired me to do the same. I treasure that inspiration. I cradle it in my hands, and I nurture it every day. It is a mighty force. It is the source of educating 10,000 children at the intersection of music, science, and technology, and it will continue to be the source of educating tens of thousands more. If you leave here today remembering one thing, let it be that the life you lead can inspire those around you, and sometimes in very unexpected ways. Are you leading an inspired life? An inspiring life? How many chances do you get to make an impact on other people? How many chances do you get to truly affect the human experience? The potential of the universe is placed in all of our hands every day, and we have a collective responsibility to carry it forward. Now, I know that inspired opportunities can sometimes seem daunting or even scary, but I would encourage you not to be stymied by fear. Risk and inspiration often go hand in hand, but it's part of what makes an inspired path exciting. Living an inspired life, an inspiring life, is one of the greatest ways that you can affect change in the world. Don't let that cosmic opportunity pass you by. Hold fast to the inspiration in your lives and run with it.